Let me start by saying that we are all going to die. I hate to be the one to break it to you. If you're one of those transhumanism people who's trying to live forever, be prepared to look stupid. Can you please invite me to your funeral so that I can hear your eulogy? Because what is your eulogizer going to say? So and so lies here in this coffin. She spent her whole life looking for ways to be immortal. I'm going to raise my hand in the back and just ask, did it work out for her? Is she immortal? Yeah, I'll get kicked out of your funeral. That's fine. I got nothing else to do than get kicked out of someone's funeral. Okay, of course, that's not to say that with good diet and exercise, you can't extend your life and extend the quality of your life for a very, very long time. Maybe as long as you even want to. By the end of it, you might be like, I'm done with this. Let's see what's next. We don't know. I say this not just to remind you of your own mortality, as I like to do on this channel. I say this because I recently finished this year's selfie. Yes, I paint a picture of myself every year. Well, not every year. Really, I haven't painted one in about 4 years, but I got back on it this year because I hosted that challenge show for the KOS Studios app. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I walked the crew through a self-portrait challenge. They did a great job. I'm really proud of them. Anyway, I was inspired and I thought, you know what? Why not get back on the selfie game? Why not paint another selfie this year? And so I did. Also, I finished it in a way to coincide with my birthday. So it's sort of like, what did I do from my last birthday to this birthday? Now, obviously, we had a very exciting year this past 2020, 2021. A lot of stuff happened. Plus, I started my YouTube page. So as you can see, my selfie is sort of reflecting the new YouTube page and then the constant stuff that just happened to come up this past year. Just constant something or another. And I'm there, I'm looking to the heavens and I'm asking, why you do this, God? God, like, new phone, who this? I don't think he would really say that, or I don't think that the creator of the universe and my personal creator would pull a new phone, who dis on me, because I would be very upset. I saw on a bumper sticker one time that he knows all of us, and he knew all of us before we were even formed. If it's on a bumper sticker, it must be true, right? Sure. I do this every year as a sort of journal. It's sort of to say, okay, this is what I was doing this past year. When I look back on it in 20 years, if I look back on it in 20 years, I got a whole room full of them. I don't know if I'm going to look back on all of them, but I can look at it and say, okay, that's where my mind was. That's what I was doing. Now, do I absolutely love this year's selfie? I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. So it kind of goes in the pile. There's one that's my favorite, and that goes on the wall. Actually, Babe put that on the wall. He's like, that's the best one. That goes on the wall. And then the rest of them, I just have a room full of selfies depending on what is going on with me that year. I have one that's really icy cold. I have one that's really psychedelic. I have one where I'm like a robot, like a green screen robot. Anyway, it depends on what's going through my head around that time every year. So there's no rhyme or reason to them. I think I just started painting selfies because this whole selfie trend was happening in the social media, and I was just so resistant to it. I don't post many selfies of myself on my Instagram. As many of you know, if you follow my Instagram, there are very few selfies of me. And I thought that the whole selfie trend was just sort of a conspiracy to get young women addicted to the approval of strangers. Anyway, I'm not going to go into a whole diatribe about selfies. If you like selfies, that's fantastic. Own yourself, own your image, etc. Me personally, I figured I'm a painter. I'm going to do a self-portrait rather than a selfie because it's less how I look and more what I can do. And I value that. Anyway, this is not the point. The point is that my selfie is painted in acrylics. I think I have only one painted in oil. But either way, these paintings are going to last hundreds of years if properly taken care of. Hundreds of years. I actually have, and you can't see it, but it's back there. It's just not in focus. I'll put a picture of it. It's a painting of my grandpa from World War II. It's a portrait that one of his Air Force buddies made of him. You know it's my grandpa because he's just like this. Arms crossed, like, what? What do you have to say? He's like suspecting that you're trying to con him in the picture. So I'm like, yeah, that's my grandpa. That's my grandpa's pose. That's my grandpa's state of mind. Like, what is your con right now? Anyway, I love it. I had to slap fight like all my siblings and a cousin to get that portrait because we all wanted it. And it's so well done. It's so well done. And it's so artful. And it's kind of simple, but it also shows who he is and really captures who he is. There's another portrait of him that isn't so great. We all wanted this one, and I got it. This painting was done, let's see, World War II. So what was that, 80 years ago? So this painting was done 80 years ago, and we all want to hang it in our living room. We all want to remember my grandpa, not just because who my grandpa was, but also because of the quality of the art. We all want art. And so it sort of combines my grandpa with art, and I can hang it in the living room, and I can be reminded of who he was, because he's no longer with us. I can be reminded of who he was and sort of what was in his mind, like his personality. That's why I love it. And it's a painting, so it'll last for a while. Think about it. Paper degrades. There are some books that are paper that have lasted for hundreds of years because they're well taken care of and the quality of the paper was high initially. But there are some books that, when left to the elements, degrade within a year. Loose paper, that can degrade within a matter of weeks. A painting really is going to last a good deal longer than a piece of paper. And also think about this, digital pictures. We take hundreds of digital pictures every day. Some of us don't take that many. But around the world, hundreds and thousands and millions of digital pictures are being taken. But how long are they really going to last? Well, people say things live forever on the internet. But do they really? First off, if it's in your phone, how many digital pictures have you taken over your lifetime? Probably a lot more than you have right now, because you get a new phone, you get a new laptop, you get a new hard drive, and you just sort of forget about the old pictures. And then eventually you upgrade software systems, you upgrade hardware systems, and you can't even read those old pictures anymore. Now, assuming you have uploaded your pictures to the internet, to Instagram, to whatever, they're going to last as long as the internet lasts. Now, if you have a lot of pictures on MySpace, you probably know that that platform just didn't pop off. So a lot of your pictures are probably lost. If they're on the Google servers or if they're on Instagram servers or whatever, they'll last as long as those servers last. Now, hopefully that is many hundreds of years. We don't really know though. It might not be. Like, assuming a lot of those servers get damaged, it could be natural disaster, it could be terrorist attack, it could be some sort of cyber attack. I don't know. I hope it never happens, but just because a picture is online doesn't mean it's going to last forever, because the internet isn't going to last forever. I hope it does, but that's a pretty big bet to think that the internet will last forever, or even Instagram will last forever.
In Alexandria, there was an immense library and an associated research institute, and in them worked the finest minds in the ancient world. Of that legendary library, all that survives is this dank and forgotten cellar.
We don't even know the scriptures that were lost there. We don't know the books, these things. We don't know these things that were lost in the Library of Alexandria. And what if 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people are pouring 40s on the sidewalk for the Google servers lost? Hey, it could happen. We have no control. We're going to be dead by this point, hopefully. So we don't know what's going to happen then. Off of this point, I kind of realized this a few months back, and so that's why I got a photo album. So now if I see a picture that I like, if I take a picture that I like, or my brother or my sister sends me a picture of the family that I like, I actually print it out at Walgreens and put it in my photo album, protected in plastic. That photo album is not for me. I can go on Instagram and see photos of my family. That photo album is for my nieces and nephews who are babies now. The photo album is for my kids and grandkids who haven't even been born yet. Like, I look through my grandpa's and my grandma's old vacation pictures from back in the 50s when it was actually on film, and they're so crisp and they're so clean because of the film. They're tiny, tiny, tiny black and white, but they're so crisp. I love looking at them. And my grandma had a really good eye for photography, so the pictures themselves are quite nice. And we still look at them. So what is that, 70 years later? We're still looking at them. And I remember my grandma going around with a camera And I was like, why is she always going around with a camera? And it's because she was documenting the family history for future generations. Not for her, but for future generations. And so that's why I have the photo album. It's not for me. It's so that we have something in our hand that our grandkids can look at and say, oh yeah, that's the family. They're not here anymore, but that's what they were like, and that's where I come from. And I'm worried that us taking all of our pictures and putting them online, taking them on our phone and then putting them online, that a lot of that is going to get lost, that a lot of people are not printing out their family pictures. And then what's going to happen? What are the grandkids going to look at in the year 2100? They won't have anything to look at. It'll just be lost. A lot of history, a lot of our family history will just be lost because we don't print out pictures anymore. People used to call their friends over and they used to do a slideshow of their vacation pictures. But people don't do that anymore. They just put it on Facebook, they put it on Instagram, and they say, oh, here's my vacation pictures. But what about when you aren't on Instagram anymore? Like, what are your kids are going to go up to your Instagram account? I don't think that's going to happen. I know it could happen theoretically. I just don't think it's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. And I think about the ruins of ancient civilizations. What do we see of people in the distant, distant past? We see stone carvings, hieroglyphs carved into stone. We see these massive stone buildings. We see these massive monuments. These massive stone monuments really leave an impression on us now. Even thousands of years later, we still look at these and we're still in awe of Stonehenge, of the pyramids, of the Roman Colosseum and what they were able to do. And then I wonder what they're going to look at our culture and our stone monuments, our buildings as. Some of our buildings are really ugly. Some of them are okay. We kind of borrow architecture from past times, but some of our buildings are really forgettable, especially these skyscrapers, these ones with just these boxes with windows. Like, nobody wants to see that. I think about the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were written on papyrus, and they have pretty much fallen apart. They're just these little shards that experts are trying to piece together. And I hope they do it right. I really do hope they do it right, because it is a massive puzzle that they're just trying to put together. And you see, in comparison to like stone hieroglyphs, which were carved into stone, and you see which one lasts. So even the stone is better than the paper. They didn't quite have plastic back then. Plastic can last a good long time. So yes, what people in the future might remember about our time is action figures. It might be action figures and not books. It might be action figures and not a lot of our media, because a lot of our media is on servers. Will they be able to read servers in the distant future? They might just think that we are a people obsessed with action figures. And we kind of are, so I'm not really mad about that. We are kind of obsessed with action figures. We're kind of obsessed with superheroes and action figures, so how can I be mad about that? Another thing that's really interesting off this Dead Sea Scroll point is that the Bible itself survives because people reprint it. Like, there's not just one Bible going around. It's the idea. The ideas, the books of the Bible, the words themselves have been reprinted, and the words themselves have taken on a life of their own. The actual Bible itself, I mean, there's hundreds of those, there's thousands of those, they're paper. I wonder how many years of not printing Bibles it would take for there to be no more Bibles, for everyone to just forget about what's inside of them. There are some oral traditions like this. A lot of people have oral traditions, and the problem with oral traditions is if they're not written down, they're often lost. Because all it takes is just one generation to not pass on the information to the next generation, and then that information is lost. The Druids were a lot like this. It was an oral tradition, and as far as I know, there aren't any more Druids left that still possess that knowledge, so a lot of that knowledge is lost. If you know of another oral tradition, please put it in the comments down below. I do have a lot going on, but I will always go down a rabbit hole for the right comment. So then you think about it, and you think of the peoples who have ever walked the earth. Most of their traditions have been lost. Most of them haven't been written down. Most of those people have been assimilated into other cultures, and so they've taken on the conqueror's positions. They've taken on the conqueror's traditions. And so most of the cultural knowledge of the world has been lost. A lot of archaeologists, a lot of anthropologists try to preserve what they can find, and we're always finding out about, new discoveries from back in the day, but Like I said, unless it was written down and carved into stone, what are the chances that we're going to find it? And if we do find it, what are the chances we're going to be able to translate it? Like, we know what the hieroglyphs say because of the Rosetta Stone. If we hadn't found the Rosetta Stone, we wouldn't know what they say. It would just be beautiful pictures. So this is very interesting for me. What gets remembered, and what gets remembered for how long? The traditions of most peoples are lost. Most languages are lost. The amount of languages spoken is getting dwindled down until, we're going to have English, French, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, and, a few of the major languages. But languages are lost all the time because if people don't speak them, then they just become lost to the ages. Okay, now here's something that'll really get in your head. If you're already comfortable with this video, here's something that might make you uncomfortable. Okay, so language gets lost. Okay, so traditions get lost. What about when whole peoples get lost? Entire peoples, entire bloodlines just wiped out for whatever reason. We know the big examples, Carthage, for example. Rome just went in and just buried Carthage, just destroyed them, just wiped them off the map. Rome generally was not playing. Now, this is something I admire about Rome, but also kind of am glad I don't actually have to meet any Romans, because they did not play around. If you went up to a Roman and yelled at him and was like, "You killed our Messiah," he'd be like, "Which one? Get in line. We kill Messiahs 24/7. It's just Rome don't care. Rome didn't care back then. Now, yes, they wiped Carthage off the face of the earth, but that didn't end the Carthaginian bloodline. They intermarried and it still survives. Then I got to thinking the other day when I was watching this documentary about horses, and we can trace the domestication of the horse. And we can trace it back to this people that doesn't survive. The people themselves are all gone. Their DNA is gone. They didn't intermarry with anybody. They're basically non-existent right now. And the horses survived. So their biggest contribution is the domesticated horse. Now, this is a major contribution, but when you really think that this is a people who did so much and they were able to do so much with the horse and contribute to civilization, but they themselves were completely wiped out, that's something that will mess with your head. It messed with my head. I was just like, this entire tribe, this entire lineage was just lost to the ages. But we have the horse. If your day isn't thoroughly ruined by now, you are made of stone. I am honored that you have subscribed to my channel, because that one kind of messed me up a little bit. I look at our society, modern American society, and I worry because our massive stone monuments aren't so beautiful. We have the highway system. Don't get me wrong. The highway system is a beautiful feat of architecture and engineering. I love the highway system, but it's not very beautiful. And a lot of our buildings aren't so beautiful either, and a lot of them will be underwater. Honestly, I think the place that has the best chance of survival into many thousands of years from now is Las Vegas, because it might get covered with sand and preserved under sand. Now, we've got the Hadron Collider too. That will surprise an archaeologist in a few thousand years, because they'll go out there, all big and tough, like, we're the most advanced civilization ever, we're this and this and that, and then they'll find the Large Hadron Collider and they will just be like, oh my goodness, we ain't shit. These people were breaking apart particles. I'm like, yeah. Rewrite your history. Look at that Large Hadron Collider going around like that. What is it? You don't know. You have to do generations of research just to figure out what this is. You still don't understand it. Ha. Large Hadron Collider for the win. Why am I hating on a people that doesn't even exist yet? I just think that they're full of themselves, because we're so full of ourselves. So I'm like, they're going to be full of themselves too. No reason for me to think this. And yet I do. The Los Angeles ruins are going to be trash. They're going to be underwater. The New York ruins, also trash, underwater. We have to get a dive team to excavate those. But Las Vegas, now those ruins are going to be popping, because those ruins will probably get covered up by desert. Just sand. It'll be like all of these massive structures underneath the Sahara that have survived, protected by sand. And people are going to come and excavate Las Vegas. They're going to be like, oh my God, these people were fascinating. What is this? A Sphinx and Paris? And they're not going to know what hit them. They're going to have no idea. This is not going to make any sense to anybody. It's gonna be like, we've seen these ruins in China, and we've seen these ruins in Egypt, and these in Europe. If they have, who knows? Who knows when they're finding it? It's under desert. It's under sand. We're still finding stuff from the Egyptians under sand. So they're going to go to Vegas and be seriously confused. It's going to be filled with casinos and action figures. They're not going to know what is going on. That's funny to me. That is so funny to me. And we're not going to be able to explain it because everything that would explain it is on paper or it's on a server they can't read. So they're going to have no idea. Oh my God. Vegas is going to be what cements us in the ancient history books. I love it. And I don't know, maybe this is one reason why I subconsciously don't really do computer art. First off, it's a major learning curve, and I don't really mess with computers like that. That's why it took me so long to start editing my own videos, start making my own videos, because I had to edit them. I had to learn to edit. But then to go and do art on a computer, like I'm used to using a paintbrush. I'm used to holding a pencil. And so to go and do that on a computer and not be able to actually touch what I have, that always turned me off. So I'm not a computer artist. I don't do computer generated things. And I mean, on the one hand, that's good because what I have, I will be able to look back at. It's not going to get lost on an old server or an old hard drive. But on the other hand, I know that the times demand that things be on computer. For a while, I was sort of like, well, why am I even bothering when people can just do this on computer? Why paint at all? Why draw at all? Like, why do any of this if the computer is just going to take over and Photoshop is just going to take over completely? So, you know, that's just something people deal with. That's just something you just have to deal with. I'm sure every type of artist thinks the same thing. Like, why bother learning how to play this instrument when it can just be mimicked on the computer? And a lot of the times, unless you're the top player of that instrument, what's being mimicked on the computer is going to be better than what you can do. So it's sort of like, well, what's the point? And then do I want to go hyper realism? At that point, what's the difference between what I've done in a photograph, which is also a machine? It's something I think about a lot. Like, it's just something that I think about a lot, and it doesn't necessarily bother me, but I'm aware of it. I'm going to try to find a Joe Bob Briggs monologue that he did about having everything come to us through the cloud, like through the Apple TV, rather than actually owning DVDs, because he made a really good point, which is, first and foremost, the streaming services can control what is available to us. None of us have DVD players, so they're able to control everything that we see and everything that we hear, and they can censor something simply by choosing not to put it on a streaming service.
One of the most liberating developments in the history of free expression was the invention of VHS. There's a device called the Blu-ray player that allows anybody in the world to order a physical copy online and watch it the next day. The Blu-ray player, in other words, is the Jerry Gross of our day. It's our defense against a world of judgmental overlords who would very happily make Mayor Zarki's film disappear. And pretty soon now, we won't have that protection anymore. Samsung announced that they will no longer manufacture 1080p or 4K Blu-ray players.
Even beyond the censorship aspect of it, just having these movies only exist in the ether, only exist in the cloud, is actually quite terrifying. When is there going to be that black spot, you know, in our history where there is just nothing that can be found? But of course, all of this is ultimately a moot point, because we are all going to die. All of our peoples are going to die. All of life on Earth is going to die out one day. So we will all be forgotten. It's just a matter of when it will happen. I'll tell you a joke that my grandpa told me when I was super little. Okay, it goes like this. There's a scientific conference, right? And this physicist is up there giving a speech to hundreds of people. Okay, and he says, in 1 billion years, the sun is going to expand and it's going to annihilate all life on Earth. And this one guy raises his hand and is like, all life on Earth is going to be annihilated in 1 million years? And the guy goes, no, in 1 billion years. And the guy goes, oh, thank God. All of this to say that I painted a picture. Subscribe.